If I live here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session of the Let's Talk Show by Interlingua. As usual, I am your host, Mike Ruiz, and today we're going to talk about probably a very sensitive topic because not only it gets us out of our comfort zone, but maybe sometimes we even have to and we don't. And this is about leaving your own hometown. There are plenty of reasons why anyone would leave their hometown. Maybe it's because of a job situation, which is probably the best reason. Maybe because you just want to know the world. Or in the worst case scenario, maybe if you're an infant and your tutor lives in another part of the place that you call home, sorry, you have to go over there. Sometimes change is not very welcomed, especially when it's uninvited. So be sure to participate in the comments while you watch this show if you have ever been in a situation in which you had to leave your own hometown and what were the reasons. Was it for better? Was it for worse? Did you eventually came back? Did you eventually come back to where you are from? Please, this topic is for an endless conversation. But that's from me to you. In our case, let's bring out our guests. Both of them live in separate parts of the world, and we will find out why. So making their debut in the Let's Talk session, let's bring out Rubén and Simon. What's up, everybody?
Hey, what up? How are you?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, good to see you, and thank you so much for taking your time to participate in here with us. So, wow. I must say, what the information that you guys told me, I was really intrigued by it, but let's get there bit by bit. First of all, let's address the elephant in the room. All of you guys lived in separate parts of the world other than where you actually come from. So, the most simple question to begin and to set the atmosphere: how did you guys feel when you found out you had to leave your hometown, or maybe the place you call home? Rubén.
Okay, hello, how are you guys? So to answer the first question is like I was really excited though, because of my education, I went to France to study a master's degree. I'm from Mexico City, and I was really excited because I wanted to go out from Mexico since a long time ago. And after that, well, everything like all the things go the way I wanted to go. And right now I was in France. Right now I'm in Barcelona. And I've been here for already 13 years. Yep, that's the main reason.
All right, we'll get
good.
Okay, we'll to be continued with that one. Simon, what about you? When you first found out that you had to actually move, you have lived in several places, as I understand. But when you were really conscious about moving to another country, what was your reaction?
Yeah, so, I was born in Belarus. We had to leave because of the Soviet Union collapsing and splitting into multiple countries, and it was not a very good place to be at the time, so we left. We had the option to go to Israel because my grandfather is Jewish, so we were able to go there. We spent some time there. Obviously, I was a kid, so I had no choice. After that, we spent almost 5 years there. But in Israel, things changed politically. And at that time, in the 90s, early 90s, there was like bombings and stuff. So we were like, okay, well, this is not super good. So we went to Canada. This was probably, again, I was still a kid. So coming to Canada, all of these changes were relatively simple for me because obviously my parents took care of everything. I didn't have to worry about much, but I just had to basically integrate into a new culture, a new language, and things like that. But being a kid, that's quite, I think, maybe easy, maybe not for everyone, but for me, it was quite easy. We also had to relocate basically to Mexico, and we didn't know how long we would stay, but luckily we didn't have to stay for too long because we, well, essentially had to sell everything and just like hope that we, well, Spanish and so on. So we basically stayed some time in Mexico, came back to Canada, and then I studied there. I grew up there. I made friends there. I also made very good friends while I was in Mexico, actually. But then I graduated university and I decided to go to California. That was the first this time that I made the decision to move. And I think it was pretty easy. It was a little bit nerve-wracking from the perspective of like, hey, I'm going to a new place. Everything is familiar in Montreal. My family, my friends are there. But I had a couple of friends in California, so it was easy to anchor to them and to basically, I already had a support system. So that was quite easy. After California and being there for a while and exploring the West Coast and living on the East Coast, I decided that that I had kids and so on, family, whatever. So we decided that we wanted our kids to not grow up as, you know, Americans only, and we wanted them to explore different cultures, and we also wanted to live in Europe. So we moved to the Netherlands, and we've been here for 5 years. And on peut parler en français si tu veux, Rubén.
Yes, all right.
Merci, continue.
Oh, so now we have Barcelona and we have the Netherlands, guys. Do you feel at home where you are now, Rubén?
Yes, of course. It's been like too many things I've been passing through here. COVID, for example.
Oh,
Yeah, for sure. My kids were born here. Just like I'm right now in a small town called Calella. They were born like 20 minutes out from here. It's called Mataro. And yeah, I mean, they were born here. They're Spanish. My wife is from Uruguay. I'm from Mexico, but my kids were born here. So of course I feel home here. I have restaurants, and all the businesses I've been doing, like just the important businesses I've been doing, they've been here. So for sure, I can call it home, but Mexico is Mexico, and it will always be my home, and I will have it in my heart.
appreciate it. Good to see. Good to know that. What about you, Simon? Do you feel at home from where you are now?
So yeah, basically over time, I would say after, 3-4 years of staying at any place, it becomes my home, more or less. I think because I've spent, 15 years in Montreal, that will probably remain my maybe close to heart home, because that's where, we grew up as kids for a bunch of time, and we made lots of friends and so on. But today, when I come to the airport in Amsterdam, I'm like, holy shit, this feels great. Like I'm home, So, but to be honest, when I'm in California or when I'm in Montreal, I'm extremely comfortable. I have zero problems. Like I know everything. I know people, like I have friends, so I don't have an issue. When I go to Mexico, it's like, I'm still like, like keeping a low profile.
Oh, all right.
Because I'm not super familiar with everything, but I have some good friends who I make sure they pick me up from the airport.
Actually, you said something very interesting. The thing is, you're not very familiar with, and since you guys have had to live in different cities around the world, tell me, for you guys, personally speaking, of course, what is the most difficult part when adapting to a new environment, a new nation, a new city? Rubén.
Actually, for me, it was the language because when I first moved to France, I mean,
Oh.
yeah, of course, I studied French for 2 years at the university. But actually, when I arrived to the train, I remember this anecdote. I was in Montpellier, and I arrived to the train. There was this security guy that arrived to me and was like, "Ça va?" "Ça va" means like, "How are you? Everything's okay." You know, I was like, "What the heck is this?" I meant 2 years thrown to the trash because I didn't know anything, even to answer. I didn't know anything, but after that, I was like, okay, I have to get into the language. Otherwise, it's going to be really difficult for me. And I was like partying with French people. I was doing everything in France. I mean, my phone was in French instead of it was in Spanish or English. My best friend is from France. My first girlfriend was French. So, yes, that was actually when I like get through that, the language, I was like, okay, so what I need to do is get into the language. After that, I moved to Belgium, and as I knew French, it was like, oh, it's amazing. I can move all around Belgium, all around almost the world because I know English and French. After I was in Nice too, and I used to speak Italian, but I forgot that because I was living in the northern part of the northern part of Nice, which is like just next to Italy, and there were a lot of Italian people over there. And I think the language is the most important thing if you want to go everywhere. That doesn't matter if you don't want to study. I mean, it's really important. But with the languages, you can move all around the world if you want. For me, was that.
And for you, Simon, because for you, I must think it was a little harder since you had to move so many times while being a kid.
No, actually, it was easier because as a kid, you pick up the languages almost for free. Like you don't even realize it, right? You don't actually, before you're 4, yeah, like you don't even know that there are different languages. You're just speaking different languages and you're like, it's just blended in your brain. You don't even understand the separation. In fact, a friend of mine, she has a kid and the kid is 5 and he already speaks Greek, Dutch, and English and some Albanian. So like, and he doesn't even probably know the notion of the different languages. So just because he's exposed to them and, you know, different parents are speaking different languages and grandparents, whatever. To me, I think I can definitely relate to the language, which has historically been the case when I moved before. But in the Netherlands, actually, like, you know, I don't remember the exact statistics, but it's something like people up to age 60, 90% of them speak English. So in the Netherlands, it's quite easy to get around with just speaking English. It is a immigrant welcoming country. So my kids unfortunately go to an international school because we started on that path and we didn't know how long we'll stay, but we ended up really liking it. And now they're already in the international school and we actually really like it. So we are going to keep them there for a while. But it is important for me to also learn. I think for me, it was more like when I moved here, like, how do things work? Where do I, you know, go to spots? How do I understand how, you know, the Dutch culture kind of operates, how Dutch people think, yeah, what's important to them. But the language can definitely accelerate that for sure.
Have you guys ever felt, I love this term, a cultural clash in a place that you have visited or in a place that you have established yourself, considering your backgrounds? Rubén.
I think, yeah, I have to say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, the places I've been here, well, in France, for example, the first time I arrived to Paris, if you don't speak French, forget about it. It doesn't matter where you're from. They will look at you like, why you're here? why do you're here?
Excellent.
After that, I was just like that, like like a bug. So, and afterwards, I was like in the southern part of France. They're really nice people over there. They're really, really, really nice. But in Barcelona, people that doesn't speak Catalan, oh, forget about it. It's the same thing. I mean, if you don't speak Catalan, I can understand a bit of Catalan because it's like similar to French. And once I was working, I've been working all the time in hostelry. I love hostelry. I love restaurants. I love hotels. I love everything but that. And I was like, they were talking to me in Catalan. I was like, what the heck, man? I don't understand anything. I got a bit pissed off, but I cannot tell him like nothing like rude. So I start speaking to him in French. I was like, he told me I don't understand anything, but I was like, I'm the same. So let's make like the neutral and let's talk Spanish. He was like, okay, But yeah, I've been feeling this. Yeah.
Wow, I had a similar situation. What about you, Simon?
Yeah, this has happened multiple times.
Cool.
For example, in Canada, it's very funny because both languages, especially in Quebec, officially it's like French and English, which is very funny because not everybody, but the majority of the population speaks both languages. But if you go and speak to a francophone in English, they will answer to you in French. And if you go to speak to an anglophone in French, they will answer to you in English. And they don't want to switch, even though they understand and can speak both. So they want to preserve their cultural language and they want to stick to it. And sometimes they're very I guess they're very strict on that. Similarly, in France, when I go to France and I speak with French people who speak French in the French accent, like the proper French, when they hear that I'm speaking the French Canadian or the Quebec one with an accent, they're like, "Bleh."
Wow.
But this is not all the time. This is not always the case, right? Like I have French friends who are in the Netherlands and they're super nice and they're super welcoming. But I have had cases where, I would speak in French to them and they were like, "Ew." So, which I can understand because the French, the nice French, it sounds way better than the Canadian one. So yeah, I've had some cases like this. Even in Germany, like we've traveled and, we go to a restaurant and they know that you're not German. Like in in the countryside, like in small cities, it's quite, they want to hear German. In like Munich, Berlin, Frankfurt, it's way more international, so it's not a problem.
What is the main difference between the French from Quebec than from the French of France?
It's really funny. That happened to me. Sorry to interrupt. That happened to me. I was working in cruise lines. I was working for Royal Caribbean, and for example, this word and Simon is gonna say yes. That's the word. Like for example, in France, the French friends, you say the duck, a duck, quack quack. It's like canard. And in Montreal, they will say canard. The last word like canard.
They want to drag it out.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
wow.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I can send you a video after, but they're just in French in Quebec. The French there are like almost 7 or 8 accents that you can use just in Quebec. And you can very clearly hear them, like it's very clear. So I can send you a video. I was actually talking about this with someone recently and I found this video to share because I was myself like, oh shit, this is actually, I can relate. I can understand all of them. And I realized like, okay, this is actually true. I thought there were only 2, but then I listened to them. I was like, wow, there's like 7 or 8 of them. Yeah. So.
Wow. So yes, please do, because that's a topic that I'm very interested in, the accents. Like it's amazing how, in different countries, small parentheses, in different countries, they're supposed to speak one language if we speak in average, but each region speaks it differently. And at first I thought, very naive of me, a couple of years ago, at first I thought that at least in Latin America, Mexico had a lot of different accents. But then I found out through some friends that Colombia as well, Venezuela as well, Argentina as well, and definitely, the United States. And I know that even in England, they have a special accent for pretty much the region where you live.
For sure. England, you will see multiple different accents. You will see like the more posh, and then you will see like the hood kind of accents. in America, you will see the Southern accent, the East Coast accent, that's like the Boston accent. On the West Coast, you will see like more the Hollywood, LA accent. Yeah, so you can, there's tons of them. Russia's,
Yeah, I don't. Uh-huh.
Russian,
Really?
you can, yeah, I mean, you can have a more polished, I think, I guess, or a more street like slang kind of dialogue. Probably not as extreme as some of the ones like we said, like from Mexico or French, but yeah, there are some, nuances there.
It's because, for me, like, well, my ear for Russian, I had to admit it's not very good. But, in general terms, languages like Russian, like German, they're pretty strong. Like, sometimes it doesn't matter. When I hear a conversation or when I watch a video or a movie, it doesn't matter that they are happy. They sound rough.
And you haven't
They
heard
sound a bit
Arabic?
like,
Of course, I've heard this comment. I've heard like, "Hey, why are you angry talking to your mom?" I'm like, "Oh, we're telling her I love her." No,
no.
I'm exaggerating, but it was kind of along those lines.
Yeah, it's a very guttural. Those are very guttural.
But it's not
Uh,
only what you say and how it sounds. It's also the intonation and the tone that you convey. Like you could be very direct in what you say in Russian, and it's not even aggressive. It's just you're making a point. You're maybe louder, but you're not like in an argument.
it all depends of the context, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty much. Guys, being in a city in another country, it can also translate into get in touch with a different culture. Since you have been around more than just one city around the world, are there any aspects from those cultures, maybe just one, maybe many, that you have adopted in your everyday life? Rubén.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
And I didn't realize until I went the first time to Mexico. For example, here people in Europe, not in France, well, yes, I didn't have that much time like to get some particular like yes or whatsoever back there in France. But here in Spain, I don't know because of the language or I don't know. When I went the first time to Mexico, I was like really direct to people, and they were like, "Why you talk to me like that?" It's like, but I'm not saying anything. Just like what he was saying, I'm direct. I'm just saying the things that how they are. Back in Mexico, Mexican people were like, we try to, if they like with some words like no, but maybe if you're no. It's like this boomba, and I arrived to my mom was like, Ruben, why you talk to me like that? I was like, no, mom, it's like just the things they are. I mean, yes, but you can say it the other way. I was like, oh. Now I speak like Spanish, guys. It's like I didn't like that much, but it's good actually. It's good actually because you can say the things you want to say without saying like stupid things sometimes, of course. Yeah, that's one of it's good. I thought it's good. I like it.
I remember last time when I went to have dinner to a Cuban restaurant, and I had something like that. I get the waiter came to my table. I was like, "¿Qué tú quieres?" I'm sorry. And a friend of mine told me, no, it's the way they talk. Don't worry. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. So un cafecito, please. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. And I felt guilty. I didn't know what maybe that's all I don't want to eat anymore. No, don't worry, man. Chill out. That's how they speak. All right. And then we had a good time. What about you, Simon? Have you adopted any aspect of another culture to your everyday life? All right.
100 million%. I mean, every time I've moved, I've been lucky that I can observe and take things that I like from these places and make them part of my personality, right? And this is, I mean, in varying degrees. Obviously, the example that you mentioned, being direct, being more laid back, being more, the way you speak, this helps me at work. I basically, I work with Russians, I work with people from California, I work with people from the Netherlands, and they're all very different on how you communicate, and it helps a lot to understand and to be able to be a chameleon, so to speak, to adapt to different, situations and cultures. Even the lifestyle and even the work ethic and the culture in different cultures is different, right? Like if you are in the US, you are working a lot, right? If you are in the Netherlands, you are working, but you are working to live. In the US, maybe, I mean, obviously I'm generalizing, but in the US, it's more like, hey, we're living to work, right? In Canada, it's a balance of both. But then, it also helps you understand what you value. Like in the Netherlands, our cities are small, so to go in between cities from one to the next, you just hop on a train, boom, half an hour, you're in a different city. 20 minutes by car, you're in different cities. In the US, you can't do that. It's like several hours of driving. In Canada, it's very different, right? So you also prioritize. Do I want to live in a walkable city? Do I want to, take public transport more often? Do I want to ride a bike, right? Like everybody in the Netherlands has like 3 bikes or something. It's, so I absolutely have taken, and it's a very, very, I think, lucky thing to be experiencing, because you can take things that you like from like in Mexico, I lived there, and when I traveled, everybody was super friendly, especially like when they don't know you well, but somebody from the family or a friend introduces you, all of a sudden, like you're part of the family, So that was super cool.
All right, guys. Guys, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you have shared. It's almost time to wrap things up, to say hasta la vista. But before we do that, it's time for our now traditional rapid fire round. So, guys, number 1. What do you prefer? What would you prefer? Stay where you are or going back to your hometown? Rubén.
Going back to my hometown.
Simon.
Stay.
All right. Tell me something that you really miss from another part of the world. Rubén.
Food.
I get you. Simon?
The weather.
The weather, okay. Something that you don't miss at all. Rubén?
Traffic.
I hear you, bro. Simon?
I think work-life balance, it's more chill here.
I get it. Now, is there a part of the world that you would like to move to in the future? Why not? Rubén?
Uruguay.
Okay. What about you, Simon?
I definitely want to spend at least 6 months in Switzerland. It's on my list.
Switzerland. All right. Beautiful nation. Guys, very good. Well done. And once again, thank you so much for taking your time, especially with the schedule difference from where you are now. But this has been very helpful for us, and I thank you guys a lot. And you are always welcome in the Let's Talk sessions.
Whatever you want.
And, of course, for all of our viewers, this has been our show. Rubén was with us. Simon was with us. Eric Rios was in the controls. Poncho was in charge of the edition. And since we have been speaking a lot about the Netherlands, we say hello to our dear co-worker and friend, Jupe. Oh, yeah. I am Mike, and so long. Goodbye and good night. Back.